New South Wales. We'll go through our New South Wales squads. We may as well reverse the order. So I'll go first. Tedesco, Addo, Carr. I've got Campbell, Graham and Crichton in the centres. 2-0 on the other wing. Luai, Cleary, Haas. I have gone Coruscant. RCG starting prop. Travojevic in the second row with Murray. That's because I have to put Yo at 13. It's a no-brainer. And I think Jake ends up playing a little bit of time in the middle. Nico at 14. Frizzell at 15. Madison and Crichton. Bench players would be Paul, and then the extended bench, Paulo and Olakau'atu would be the extended squad there. I would have to think about the next ball player. I suppose it's going to be Damien Cook, really, if I'm going to add an extra one to that squad. But I've got Coruscant in front. Barney, you?
Yeah, very similar. Teddy, Josh Addo, they pick themselves. I've gone with Stags in the centres. I just think he's got that little bit upside of attacking flair, obviously, and recently his defence has been pretty hard to go past as well. So Stephen Crichton, Brian To'o, Luai Cleary, Haas, and I've started with Paulo. I just think 20 minutes at the start and then probably 15 minutes into the second half there, and you can rotate the rest of your forwards around that. Murray at 11, Crichton at 12, Yo at 13, Hines at 14, Regan Campbell-Gillard at 15, who will probably play more minutes than Paulo, but just leave him on the bench there for a little bit. I've gone with Olakau'atu at 16. I think as a back row, it pains me actually to leave Martin out, and I don't think they will just because of the combination in the Penrith team. But I think Olakau'atu just offers that little bit more size and X factor when he's running at the holes, especially close to the line. And Jake Trbojevic to be played the way he probably should have been played for the last 2 years, and get him in the middle with the rest of the pigs, and he can work like a front rower instead of trying to be a 5'8" or a halfback.
Oliver.
Okay, so fullback James Seresto, shock and horror. On the wings, Brian To'o and Josh Addo. Centres, I've gone for Campbell Graham and Katoni Stagg, so I think it's the opposite of you two overall. Luan Clear in the halves. Campbell Gillard and Payne Haas starting props. Coruscant at hooker. Murray and Frizzell, second row at lock. Isaiah Yo. Nico Hines as my utility player. Jake Travojevic off the bench. I just think that middle period of the game is when his impact will be there, and Barney's right, talking about getting him in the middle, and I think he'll make 40 to 50 tackles in the game. Liam Martin, I've kept him in the side as well, and Paulo at 17. My extended bench, 18th man, I've got Ryan Madison. 19th man, I've got Stephen Crichton. And at 20, and this is my bold choice that I was going with,
Adam Dewey,
who is currently the form halfback in the NRL from New South Wales. If Nathan Cleary goes down at any point in the game or leading up to it, it's Adam Reynolds. I think he deserves it. I think he deserves a spot in this squad.
I had a feeling with your pre-game chat that this might have been the way you were going, so I left my extended bench out on purpose, actually, to give you a bit of a crack there. But
have you got him as well?
I do. I actually have Liam Martin in with Schuster and Reynolds. They would probably be the three that I would play, because a combination of those three, you've got your halves covered, your hooker covered, and your outside, your second rowers covered as well. So, and then you can play around with a couple of the other boys and push them into the middle and stuff like that. But I could see Reynolds and Schuster as a really good dynamic to fill positions if there were injuries within the halves and the back row in this team. So
I think, and we'll get to go up in a sec. I just didn't mention because obviously if Cleary goes down, he's the first bloke they pick up the phone to.
Yeah,
it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And you know what? If Luai goes down, they might even play him now, because there's nothing. You're not going to pick Cody Walker, are you?
Probably not.
Gump.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to everybody else's, just with a little bit of fiddling in the forward pack. I've got Tedesco, Addo, Crichton and Staggs, To'o, Luai, Cleary, Haas, Coruscant, Paulo to start. I've got Murray and Martin on the edges and Yo at lock. I've got Nico Hines at 14. Then I've got the three forward bench players as Jake Turbo, Madison and Angus Crichton. At my extended bench, I wouldn't put people like Reynolds and that in the squad. You don't need them in the squad. If someone gets hurt, you just bring them in. But I think that you'll go with Whiten as 18th man. And I think Campbell Graham and Kaloa Matangi will be the other two. I think that they were there last year, and I think that they're the two that have the future sort of going forward, and I think he'll want them to be part of it. So that I'd go for Kaloa Matangi over Olakau'atu at the moment, just in terms of consistent long-term form. He hasn't been outstanding this year, but for 18 months he's been pretty good. So
yeah, well, just to touch on that, with a more realistic sort of extended bench there, I'd be looking at blokes like Clemmer. I think he's been in some of the best form he's been in for 3 years recently. So he'd be somebody that you could slot in that extended bench to take up a spot in the middle. Frizzell's been quite good when he has played, even though he's gone down a couple of times. And then the one bloke I do feel really sorry for is actually Tupu. He's done nothing wrong. Every time he's played Origin, he's been fantastic. Week in, week out, he does a fantastic job for the Roosters, and probably wouldn't be a bad shout to have him on the extended bench there somewhere as well. But
the other one probably too would be Dale Finucane if he was fit. Would fit somewhere in the mix of the 17 or the extended squad. In terms of or in terms of one of those ones like Reynolds that you could put in. But I would say when we were talking about people going down, if Luai was injured, Whiten will be 5'8" for New South Wales. They won't go with Walker, and they'll go with Whiten because he's been there and done it before. And Reynolds would be halfback. So I don't think
I agree. And I agree with Tupou as well, but same as Reynolds, Tupou's just the first bloke you call if one of your wingers gets injured.
Yeah.
Unless they play Crichton you could play Crichton on a wing, I suppose, but I think it'll be,
And the other player, I guess, that's probably that might get a start as someone for the future would be a Matt Burton, that may be on an extended bench that they'd think about using at some point this year or next year to get him around the team. It wouldn't surprise me to see his name crop up as depending upon how many they pick.
Absolutely,
he's
in the squad.
He's just your other Jack Whiten, I suppose. So he could play 6, 7,
play lock
or centre or lock. Yeah.
Yes.
Very tricky getting the back rowers all in because I left Martin out with a bit of hesitation just because and I don't talk about extended bench, but Olakau'atu's ability to take 3 and 4 blokes with him at times, I think just has him in front there. But there's blokes like Josh Curran who I would seriously consider if he was fit. There's blokes that haven't been just up and being in and out, same as Kaloa Matangi, just a bit out of form. And I think that's been a thing with Olakau'atu as well. Just as you mentioned before, he hasn't really got going this year just through lack of putting some games together, really.
Yeah.
Everyone else struggle with that. I thought obviously Yo picks himself and has to be 13,
absolutely.
so it was just where you crowbar the others.
Yeah, well, you got as Gumpy mentioned, you got your blokes like Keon, Kulamatangi that probably should be pushing for a spot, but I couldn't find him a spot. Martin, I'm very hesitant to leave out of the squad. Olakau'atu really probably deserves a spot, but could really easily be left out of the squad as well. So,
and have you just picked Schuster because you've got Schuster there? Is that just on potential or
just more for coverage? Another bloke that could play at 6, 13. If you had to, you could probably play him in the centres as well. But I just really like the way he ball plays as a back rower, because you don't see too many guys around at the moment that can play that can pass like a half that are playing in the back row. A lot of them are starting to move towards that sort of robotic, make your meters and maybe pop an offload here and there. But he's got a bit of extra skill and footwork that a lot of other players don't have. So.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't know about his toughness yet.
He's only played a couple of games. He's coming back from Origin, so he's more than likely not going. Coming back from injury, so he's more than likely not going to get picked. But I can see him in the next couple of years definitely making his way into this side. So.
Yeah.
Speaking of injury, just out of general interest, is Ryan Pappenhausen picked in the 17 for you guys? Because I know a lot of people were saying at 14 as the utility player. I think that is disgusting as a utility player. I would still personally go with Nico. If you pick Pappenhausen in the side, you pick him at 1. Obviously, they won't because Tedesco's a captain. But I'd personally, if he was fit, I'd have him as my 19 over Crichton. And that's probably it.
I'd have him as 14.
So what
in a
makes it
heartbeat.
disgusting
He's got to play.
to you as a 14?
Well, it shouldn't be a case of he's got to play. A 14 needs to be someone who can cover a variety of positions, but also actually be given the chance really to play without stuffing around the squad too much. Because let's be honest, you look at the New South Wales 1 to 5 that we've named, barring injury, those players play 80 minutes.
Yeah, but how do you get Nico on the field? It's the same thing with
He can
Pappenhausen.
play in the
Realistically, how do you get
he
him
can
on the
play in the
field?
halves at fullback as well, but I think especially he can play in the half, so he can come on as a.
How many teams
If there's
play
no
their halves or their
third half.
fullbacks? And
Yeah.
against
Pappenhausen can't.
But if the halves don't get hurt, Nico's not playing either.
Yeah.
We've seen in the past. Look at what they will probably do.
It'll probably
They
be
play him
White.
in the middle.
in the
It'll
past.
be
We've seen it.
White
We've seen it
because
for
he can
20
play in the
years.
back row
They
and
pick
play
someone
lock
like
and-
Pappenhausen and he'll play 20 minutes of dummy half.
It's the same as when Kalen Ponga first played for Queensland and they played 14 and they played him in the middle and he's the best player on the field for 30 minutes he played.
Absolutely, I'd be playing Pappenhausen over Hines if he was fit.
100%.
He's just that much quicker. You can see how much quicker he is. He supports the ball. The way he supports the ball down the middle of the field is fantastic. And he can pass the ball as well. Like he's not an out and out half, but at the end of the day, if you wanted to play him at 9 or somewhere in between 9 and 13, that sort of the Walker role that he's playing at Manly there at the moment, and just sort of float in and out of the halves and back into hooker, he'd do a hell of a job. And he's that quick that Blakes can't put a hand on him.
You know what? And just to make it 3 votes for Pappenhausen, and I respect your opinion, Oliver. Of course, I'm not saying you're wrong. But what would happen if Pappenhausen comes in the field? He probably would play fullback. Tedesco will start playing first receiver. Luai will go over to his corner, and you'll just be trying to create gaps anywhere to put Pappenhausen through.
Put an extra 6 in, basically.
Well, can you imagine Pappenhausen running off Yo and Madison with some offloads the way Madison's been going sniffing around there? And like you see what he does at the Storm off that second phase stuff and inside balls and angles and stuff. And New South Wales have got enough players with enough creativity to give him that space. And I think Nico can do a similar job, and that's how they'll use him. They'll use him to say, or if it's not Nico, it'll be Jack Whiten, and who doesn't quite give you the same. So if they go with Whiten at 14, they're not going for the same thing. They're just going for a robust defender that's going to run hard. Absolutely. So you're getting to, depending upon who they pick at 14, and we're assuming that it's Nico, but look, it wouldn't surprise me if Whiten's named as 14.
I think Freddie will pick him at 14.
They're going somewhere totally different with it. So
or Burton. He does
depends
like
on the type of. Well, it depends on the type of player that you're picking there as to how you're going to play. Like, Queensland will use Ben Hunt as 14 because Ben Hunt's tried and true, but you could use a Campbell, you could use a Reece Walsh and use them the same way that you'd use Pappenhausen. So it depends on the player you're picking there.
Yeah, I just see the argument you guys put forth for Pappenhausen. I get it, but I feel like there's also a little more moving parts that you'd have to do to fit Pappenhausen in there, and I get it. But I feel like we've found it to be a lot more simple. And again, I'm going to use Ben Hunt as the example. In the past, when he's been brought on as a lock, but realistically has played as a third half. I just believe that's probably easier to bring Nico in to do that if you had to. And I think that probably opens up. I don't know. To me, it just makes a lot more sense. It's just a lot more simple.
Actually, thinking back, we had a big chat last night about Ryan Madison. I don't think any of us named him, did we?
I did.
Extended. No, I did too, actually, in the bench.
And come to think of it, I'd push Ola Kawatu out and put Madison in probably that 17, number 17. Because I don't know why, but I completely forgot about him, and the form he's been in has been fantastic.
It wouldn't surprise me if Madison started.
Yeah.
The game, but he plays off the bench for Paris, so I'm tipping he'll play.
The only reason, put it this way, it's because I had to have Jake. I just had Jake starting, and I'm thinking he'll play 80, and that's why. Otherwise, I would be okay if Madison starting. I'd be okay with, and I would generally start Crichton in front of him. But I've just kept Jake on. Lastly, we'll move on. All of us picked Appy. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we did discuss it last night. But anyone want to make a quick comment? Just he's going better than Cook at the moment. Is it simple as that?
It's just form.
Yeah.
It's just form. I think we'll all probably be wrong, and they'll go with Cook.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at just sheer form at the moment, he's the best 9 New South Wales have.
My opinion is, obviously Cook's more explosive. He's a bit quicker out of dummy half, but Appy seems to pick his times better than Cook does. He does it more consistently. He gets out of dummy half, even when there's not a lot on. He seems to at least engage the line and then provide good ball to his provide good short passes to his forwards, which gets them on the front foot and halfway through the line. Whereas Cook generally just picks it up and passes, or he runs. There's no sort of in between. Where Appy's a lot more crafty. He adds a lot more dimensions of attack, and his service is better. I think he's just much better when he picks up the ball and just gets it straight out of his halves. He gets it there quicker, and he gets it there in the right position. So,
well, there's some combination there, isn't there, to that? I would probably do it with combinations as well. Not to say that we want them to be the Penrith Blues, but at the moment, Penrith are by far the best New South Wales team with them. So it stands to reason that they're going to have a majority of players.